Today, we're diving into a story that starts with a frantic New Year's Day phone call, a report of a missing wife and mother, and ends in a dark, twisted web of lies and a truly horrifying discovery. We're breaking down the shocking case of Brian and Anna Walshe.
At the absolute heart of this case is a chilling contradiction. On one hand, you have a husband's calm, totally straightforward story about his wife leaving for a last-minute work trip. But on the other, you have what the cops actually found, and that discovery just blows his story to pieces. So, let's start at the beginning.
All right, let's set the scene. Picture this. It's right around New Year's Day in Massachusetts. Anna Walshe, who's a successful executive and a mom to 3 young boys, just vanishes.
And guess who reports her missing? Her husband, Brian Walshe. His story is pretty simple. She got called away for a work emergency. But as investigators started asking questions, their attention pretty quickly turned away from where Anna might be and right onto him.
So what was Brian Walshe's initial story? He laid out this really detailed, calm account that, for a moment, seemed perfectly plausible.
His alibi was clean, or so it seemed. He said Anna, who's a busy real estate executive, was suddenly called to Washington, D.C. for an emergency. He even described kissing her goodbye in the wee hours of the morning and said he was expecting her back soon. He was basically painting this picture of a normal, if kind of chaotic, family life.
And that right there is the million-dollar question, isn't it? As the police started to dig deeper, they had to ask, does the physical evidence, the digital trail, the whole timeline, does any of it actually back up what Brian Walshe is saying? Well, the answer to that question would change absolutely everything.
So Brian's super calm demeanor, plus all these little inconsistencies in his timeline, they were huge red flags for investigators. They decided to expand their search, and what they found would turn this from a standard missing person case into a full-blown murder investigation.
Now, just stop and think about that for a second. If your wife supposedly left for a work trip, why in the world would police be searching trash dumpsters miles away from your house? It's because Brian Walshe's own activity, his digital footprint, led them there. He had Googled some terrifying things like how long for a body to smell and how to dispose of a 115-pound woman's body.
And this is what they found. Not luggage for a work trip, but things that told a much more sinister story. They found blood-stained tools and, just chillingly, some of Anna Walshe's personal belongings, just discarded like trash. This discovery was the exact moment Brian's whole narrative completely fell apart.
So, with this really disturbing physical evidence in hand, investigators started to dismantle Brian Walshe's story, piece by piece, and what they uncovered was a truly shocking pattern of deception.
The scale of his deception was just staggering. His first claim, "Oh, she left for work," stands in stark contrast to the horrifying reality he later admitted to, dismembering her body. He pretended to be cooperative the whole time while he was actively misleading the police to cover his tracks.
Which, of course, brings us to the crucial question, why? Why would he do this? Well, the investigation started pointing to a couple of potential motives: a huge life insurance payout and evidence that suggested Brian was having an affair. It all painted a picture of a man who was desperate to escape his life and willing to do the unthinkable to make it happen.
And now we come to the final, and honestly, maybe the most haunting chapter of this whole case. The trial, the verdict, and the one question that still hangs over everyone involved.
Look, despite what his defense lawyers argued, the evidence was just overwhelming. A jury looked at those internet searches, the physical evidence from the dumpsters, that whole web of lies, and they did something pretty rare and legally difficult. They found Brian Walshe guilty of murder.
But there's a really haunting reality to this conviction. 0. That's the number of times Anna's remains have been found. He was convicted of her murder without her body ever being recovered. A verdict that was built entirely on a mountain of circumstantial evidence.
And that's the devastating postscript to this whole story. Even with the conviction, Brian has never revealed where he put her remains. So for her family, Anna Walshe is, for all intents and purposes, still missing.
And that leaves us with this final, profound question. For Anna's sons, for her friends, for her family, sure, justice was served in a courtroom. But without a final resting place, without being able to say a proper goodbye, Can there ever be true closure? It's a question that just lingers long after the verdict is read.